The film opens in a hotel room, where we meet Whip Whitaker, a seasoned airline pilot. Right away, it's clear something is wrong. Whip is heavily intoxicated. He's been drinking excessively and even continues to drink just an hour before his scheduled flight. To stay alert, Whip uses cocaine, a dangerous mix, especially for someone about to fly a commercial airliner. He soon heads to the airport and meets his co-pilot, Ken Evans. On the surface, Whip appears functional, but beneath that calm exterior, he's in no condition to fly. He casually asks a flight attendant for painkillers, claiming he hasn't slept in 2 nights. Meanwhile, the story introduces us to Nicole, a struggling drug addict. She visits a dealer to score heroin. Even he warns her about the strength of the dose she's about to take, a clear sign of how deep her addiction runs. Back on the plane, Whip makes a risky decision. Despite poor weather conditions, he manually takes control and pushes the aircraft above the storm clouds, hoping for smoother skies. Passengers and crew are visibly tense. Ken, the co-pilot, is uncomfortable with Whip's choices, but doesn't question him. After all, Whip is the captain. Miraculously, they clear the storm, and the passengers remain unharmed. Whip makes a casual apology to the cabin, blaming the turbulence for the rough start. Then, shockingly, he pours vodka into his orange juice and drinks it openly. Later, a flight attendant enters the cockpit and finds Whip asleep while the plane is still on autopilot. At the same time, air traffic control contacts Ken to confirm landing coordinates. But when Ken inputs the commands, something goes horribly wrong. The plane spirals out of control. As the aircraft begins to descend violently, passengers scream and panic. But Whip, despite the chaos, remains eerily calm. As the plane spirals out of control, Whip quickly takes charge. He instructs Ken to release the landing gear manually, a desperate attempt to regain stability. But this only makes things worse. The hydraulics system fails, and controlling the aircraft becomes nearly impossible. Whip then asks a flight attendant to pull down an emergency lever in the cockpit. But even with her help, the plane continues to plummet. The situation is critical. Panic spreads, and chaos takes over the cabin. During the turbulence, one of the flight attendants is thrown to the ground and loses consciousness. The plane is now rapidly descending. Whip knows there's no saving it. A crash is inevitable. In a quiet, almost chilling moment, he records a message from the cockpit, saying goodbye to his son. But then, in a daring and unconventional move, Whip inverts the plane, flying it upside down to slow the descent. It's a risky maneuver, but it buys them time. The plane levels out for a brief moment, just enough to find an open field for an emergency landing. Tragically, as Whip fights to regain control, the aircraft clips a church tower, causing severe damage. The plane crashes into the ground, breaks apart, and comes to a violent stop. One of the flight attendants dies heroically while protecting a young passenger. Several others perish, while many are seriously injured. On the ground, Nicole, struggling with her addiction, has overdosed and is being rushed to the hospital. As she's being transported, she sees the news. A plane has crash-landed nearby. It's Whip's flight. Whip regains consciousness in a hospital, injured but alive. He's visited by Charlie Anderson, his friend and union rep, along with his airline boss. They praise him, believing his heroic actions saved many lives. To them, Whip is a miracle, the man who pulled off the impossible. The aftermath of the crash is devastating. While Whip's actions saved lives, over 6 people were killed and many more were injured. Whip becomes the center of a media storm as investigators and news outlets scramble for answers. Soon after, Whip is interviewed by investigators. Once they leave, his longtime friend Charlie Anderson offers him a drink, but Whip politely declines. For a brief moment, it seems like he might be ready to change. Later, stepping out into the hospital corridor for a smoke, Whip meets 2 strangers, a man battling cancer, and a young woman. Nicole, the same woman we saw earlier, recovering from a drug overdose. They strike up an honest, heartfelt conversation. In their shared brokenness, they find a strange comfort. Whip takes her address, promising to check in on her once he's out of the hospital. Back at home, Whip receives a disturbing call from Charlie. The toxicology report from the crash has come in. It shows that Whip was under the influence during the flight. The situation is serious. To protect Whip and the airline's reputation, Charlie has hired a top defense attorney, Hugh Lang. If they lose the case, Whip not only faces prison time, but the entire airline could collapse. Someone must be held accountable, and all eyes are on Whip. Despite the mounting pressure, Whip relapses. He falls back into heavy drinking and, in a drunken state, visits Nicole's apartment. There, he finds her in a horrifying situation. Her landlord is attempting to sexually assault her, taking advantage of her financial vulnerability. Whip intervenes and pays the landlord to make him leave immediately. Disgusted by what he witnessed, Whip takes Nicole with him to his family farmhouse, hoping they both might find peace or at least a temporary escape from their demons. As the investigation continues, Whip stays out of the public eye, avoiding the press. His reputation is already unraveling, and any further exposure could make things worse. He meets with Margaret, the flight attendant from the doomed flight, a woman who could testify that Whip was drunk during takeoff. Her words carry weight, and Whip knows it. Around the same time, he learns that Ken, his co-pilot, survived but is now paralyzed from the waist down. Whip visits Ken at his home. Despite everything, Ken and his wife are grateful to be alive. They consider Whip's actions in the cockpit nothing short of a miracle. Trying to make a change, Whip and Nicole take a step toward recovery. They check into a rehabilitation center together. He for alcohol, she for drugs. But rehab isn't easy. Whip quickly grows restless and walks out. Nicole finds him hiding in a garage, drinking again. She pleads with him, saying they both need to heal, but instead of listening, Whip lashes out. Hurt and disappointed, Nicole leaves. Things only get worse. When Whip returns home, he finds media swarming outside. To avoid them, he rushes to his ex-wife's house, hoping for shelter. But he's met with more rejection. His family is tired of his drinking and ashamed of what he's become. As he leaves, the media catches him again. Still under the influence, Whip makes erratic statements in front of cameras, making his legal case even more complicated. Seeing the damage unfold, Charlie makes a decision. He'll stay with Whip until the court hearing to keep him sober. But Whip is already spiraling. He manages to find hidden alcohol and drinks through the night. The next morning, Charlie and the legal team find him passed out, completely unresponsive. With no time to waste, they do their best to clean him up, get him dressed, and rush him to the National Transportation Safety Board hearing. At the NTSB hearing, Whip is seated alongside Charlie and his lawyer, Hugh Lang, both of whom have built a strong defense. Their strategy is to shift the blame, suggesting that the alcohol found in the system belonged to the flight attendant who died during the crash, heroically saving a child. The courtroom listens intently, but just as it seems like the plan might work, Whip has a moment of clarity. Faced with lying about a woman who can no longer defend herself, his guilt catches up with him. He takes a deep breath and stands up. In front of the entire panel, Whip confesses, admitting that he was drunk the day of the flight, that he is an alcoholic, and that even today, he's under the influence. His confession shocks the room. As a result, the legal defense collapses. Whip is found guilty. However, due to his honesty and willingness to take responsibility, the court reduces his sentence. In the next scene, we see Whip serving time in prison. He shares his story with fellow inmates, 13 months sober, having finally found peace. Prison, ironically, gives him something freedom never could: clarity and redemption. He reflects on the lives lost, the mistakes he made, and the second chance he's been given. In the final moments of the film, we see Whip reconnecting with his son, who visits him in prison. There's warmth, a glimmer of healing. The movie ends on a hopeful note. Whip, once broken and lost, is finally beginning to put the pieces of his life back together.